Welcome back, Planet Coaster adventurers, to UK theme parks, and we are here in what is going to be our western area, and we are going to make one of the, if not the biggest roller coaster we have ever made. It's going to be a B&M, it's going to be a tyre driven one with a launch as well. I really don't know how this thing is going to turn out. It's going to be ducking and diving. We're not really going for a mass inversion count or anything like that. We are pretty much going for length. It's all about how big this ride is going to be. There are going to be some big drops. We're going to use the landscape actually, which is already here. So as you can see, the landscape here drops off the end and goes into like a little gorge area. So we're going to water that out and we're going to drop into that area, and you know, it is going to be immense. This roller coaster is going to be massive, absolutely massive. Now we don't really have a guide on how big it's going to be. We're going to build until we think we can build no more, but we definitely want to use this area here and have the drop down, and then have, you know, a cheetah hunt style left and right, some bank curves before shooting back up. We need to remember as well, on a coaster this size, that we will need some block brakes, because one train on this is definitely not going to be practical, and we want to make sure the block brakes are spread out enough that, you know, we're not having problems, we're not having stacking issues in particular. We see a lot of recreations online and a lot of ones online where block brakes are not placed at the right point and stacking occurs if the coaster is in full motion. So we don't want that. It's something we do strive for every time we build a roller coaster, is to make sure that, you know, it can get through the bulk of it before the next train sets off. You know, any kind of stacking, lift hill or anything like that, anything that's not using the capacity to the absolute max, is pointless. It's pointless. We'll use as much momentum as we can. We'll try not to slow it down too much. Although we will have block brakes, we'll have them going through at a reasonable pace before relaunching if we need to into other areas. As you can see here, we are going to smooth it as we go as well. I mean, look, from here, the way it hits the valley and then goes up, it already looks absolutely massive, and we haven't even started. So we are in the mine theming area. That is the bit we are going to be doing. It's going to be sort of like our old western area, which we're going to be hitting today. And in that old western area, this is going to be the highlight ride. Arguably, even though we said the inverted coaster was our highlight ride of the park, I have a feeling this will probably be the highlight ride of the park for the sheer size and scale of it, which is just absolutely massive. So here we're going to have tyre driven along here. As you can see now, we're testing that, see how fast it needs to be. Rather than lift hills. We don't want lift hills to slow it up. You know, it just goes a little bit too much if we do it that way. So we want the tyre driven. It will give it the boost, and we can do it then after block brakes. If the car does need to stop, it can keep momentum going. We don't have to worry about any kind of stalling. We will have a little bit of scenery over the entrance bit of this one. And as you can see here, we have skipped ahead to do the back end part of the ride. So you're going to see it kind of built in little stages. You might see it all built. We might cut here and here, there and everywhere, and then get to ride it. Obviously at the end, when we open the park, we will go in for a ride on these coasters to see kind of which one you think is the best. I'm really intrigued to think whether or not you think this is that unrealistic, the size of it, or whether or not you think actually they could pull something like this off. We're just testing it. We want to test it as we go around. There's nothing worse than building a massive roller coaster to find that it doesn't go round, and then you end up putting kind of boosters in, or you move block brakes, and that's when you have stacking issues, and that's when it really becomes problematic when it's in operation. So we do want to test it as we go to make sure we get the right blend and the right mix of what's going on as we kind of go round. And we do want a few elements. We are going to have some inversions, but nothing major. As you see there, we're going for the non-inverted loop. I think actually, oddly, it still counts as the inversion on here. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it still counts as inversion. But we are going for the non-inverted elements as a general rule. We don't want this to be sort of a sick fest. We want people to get on this and really enjoy the speed, really enjoy the pace, and really enjoy sort of the elements of the ride that aren't an inversion based ones. And it does span over a massive area. As you can see here, it is going over a huge area. We are going to use a lot of the terrain tooling on this one, so we're going to be filling a lot of gaps with the terrain tool. It doesn't add too much to the scenery count. It doesn't slow it down that much. Obviously, we will have to build a scenery face to it. Much with most of our rides, actually, apart from the inverted ride, which is the reason why I say it's the icon of the park. Certainly all the other rides are sort of hidden away, and you know, they don't need constant theming all the way round for people to see. Although when you're on it, you'll see what's going on. You know, there's nothing like walking into, say, Fort Park, for instance, where you can see the whole of Colossus, and you can see the whole of Nemesis Inferno, you can see the whole of Stealth, you can see the whole of the Swarm, and they really require, from a spectator point of view, for them to be absolutely incredible in terms of looking. The coasters here aren't designed for that. The coasters here, the most of it is out and about, and we don't want to make sort of Six Flags errors and have them go through car parks and things. But it does mean that we can just have grass, a few trees, and it will still look acceptable, particularly from the point of entry. So it doesn't look much at the moment in terms of any kind of scenery, as you can see. You can see we have put in quite a few booster elements. I think we've got 3 or 4 so far in order for it to make around the track. And we've put some block brakes in as well to make sure that we can run possibly 5, maybe even 6 trains, to be honest with you. It's quite a long ride. We will look at the stats. It's going to be topping, it's got to be topping 10,000 meters. It's got to be. That's sort of the goal. But we will look at the stats at the end and see how they go. We're going to put block brakes in down here as well, so we can make sure the trains stack here rather than stack out on the track too much. Whilst we do expect a little bit of the stacking out on the track, we don't want too much out there. And here it is. So we're going to start filling in now. We're going to start filling in some of the ride around here, and you're going to see some of the scenery filling in. We're going to cut some music now, and we'll join you once we've done a little bit more scenery on this beast. as you can see here. So we completed down the back bit. We kind of make it look like you're going into the canyon rock drop in. I think actually it's turned out quite nicely, and we should need fairly minimalistic theming down there once we go to finish it off. But the entrance building here is something we do want to look good from the fascia from the start. from the bit that everyone would see when they came up to the ride. So we're going to have it go through like a little salon first before shooting up the lift hill, which you see there, which will be enclosed, and then on to the rest of the ride. So a very basic sort of looking thing we're going to put in here, nothing too massive. Again, you won't see it from the back area, but you will see it once you're on the ride. And then the fascia from the outside you'll see when you're approaching the ride. So we can be, you know, I say go cheap on it. We can limit the amount of scenery we put here from what would be seen from the guest point of view. And we do want to make it look relatively good, although we are aware that this coaster is actually, you know, it's absolutely massive. So to theme the whole lot would not only take ages, but it will really, really slow the game down. Now this build actually, this coaster has taken a long time to build. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to swap out in a minute. We're going to quickly finish off this part of the building and we're going to go and start the fairy tale area. There's two reasons for this, because we do want to do a little bit more theming on here and we want to do some more theming around the park, and we need to know where the fairy tale area is going to sit in that. We need to know exactly what rides we're going to have in there, and we need to know how much space it's going to take up. So we're going to go over now and we're going to start building the main feature, which is the roller coaster in that area. So this area, which is behind the inverted coaster and right next to where we've just done the massive Western coaster, is going to be an area we set aside for a part indoor, part outdoor roller coaster. And as you can see from the screen here, which is the reason why we stopped theming, is that it comes very, very close. Because that coaster is so big, it comes very, very close to that coaster. And indeed, what else, you know, at the end of the day, we don't just want the one ride in the Western area, we want a little bit more in there as well. So it does come quite close to it. So I'm quite eager to get this one done and get the fairy tale area enclosed slightly before we theme the rest of it. The last thing I want to do is theme loads and then have to cut back on this area. So we're going to start with this coaster. We're going to have a launch coaster, an icon style coaster going in here. It's going to disappear off underground. All this will be underground. And we'll go through some wonderful fairy tale castles before heading off into the ride. The ride will launch, it will come out of there and then go in and out of rocks around a little village, or at least that's the plan anyway. Now again, this is the front area of the ride, so although at the moment it looks a bit of a car crash behind it and around it, this will all be enclosed and this will very much be you know, the fascia of the ride. This will be what you see. So you'll walk into the deep dark forest down on the base part, and this is what you'll be greeted with. You won't be able to see the rest of the attraction. So we want to make it look relatively good as a fascia before you disappear off into the darkness underneath. Now, we're not actually going to show you what's underneath here and what we're going to build here too much. We're going to do a little bit of it now, as you can see, and kind of get an idea of what's going on. We're going to have some water in there, but we're not going to show you too much of the scenery and what we're going to do. We'll leave it for a surprise for the on-ride a bit later on. But there is quite a lot of space here to do a little bit of scenery, and we do want a little bit of a pre-show before you shoot out. As you can see here, we've got tyre driven as opposed to the launch straight away, so it will be going slow through this part before it launches off into the distance and indeed into the fairy tale village, which we will be building very, very soon. And the village we will be building around the coaster. So as you can see here, you can't see what we've done underneath. We've pretty much finished under there and recovered it, and it's going to shoot out of the hole here from the launch, and then it's going to go in and out and around the village area, and this will be the village area. And as you can see, again, you can see how close this gets to the Western area to the right of it, and indeed how close it gets to the inverted coaster we've already got. So we did say that the fairy tale area would be quite tight. However, you know, we want to really make sure that there is a highlight attraction here like there is in every area. Every area has a highlight attraction and arguably a highlighted roller coaster, and this will be the one for here, this little launch coaster. It's not going to be massive by any means, but as I said, this is a little bit more theatrical than perhaps the ones we've done already, and it will have a little bit of a start to it and a little bit of an underground section before making its way back to the station. Hopefully we can run 2 or 3 trains on this. Again, we're not sure how busy the park's going to be. We're not sure we're going to have to limit the guests in order to show you the park either, because of the limitations on my PC in running the game, and I think most people's PCs, to be honest, really do start to slow up a bit on the old frame rate once you get the big parks going. But fingers crossed we can show you most of it. And that's it, that's the coaster. Although you can't see a lot of the coaster, We have squeezed a nice little ride time into this. Arguably the inverted coaster and this coaster are the smaller coasters in terms of time and layout. And then obviously we have our huge coaster and we also have a hyper coaster as well. Now we are going to build a little castle here. We need to build a little ramp down, as we said when we built the built around this other area earlier. We do want people to walk past the shops and come out the back area. So we're going to have a little fairy tale castle here, which is not going to be massive, but it's going to take up a little bit of space in order to house sort of the entrance to the roller coaster and a welcoming to the area. And then we're going to have a little village behind it, nothing too major, and honestly I think we're going to have a little flat ride in there, again more family orientated rather than adult orientated. We've got the gyro swing quite close to it, and you know, fairy tales, we'd like to think that it caters to sort of more people. Even arguably with the launch coaster not being catered to them, we want to cater it for slightly smaller people in the flat ride that we put in. So a nice little castle entrance which we're going to have here. That will lead down to the roller coaster and indeed welcome you from the back area of the park as well, where the inverted coaster is. And then lead out into the village, which we're going to build very, very shortly. So in here, coaster on the left, out on the right hand side as you see it now, and into the village. That's the goal. That's the goal for the rest of this episode before we head back and do more of the big coaster. I have a feeling the theming on the big coasters might take a little bit of time. You know, I've got to be happy with it, although I don't want to theme the whole lot. I have got to be happy with it. And I do really want this fairy tale area to be, you know, really, really tight, really, really enclosed. And, you know, again, make it feel realistic that you're in a completely different area to what you've just come out of. It will have quite a lot of trees in there as well to enclose you in, and hopefully, you know, you'll only see little snippets of the coaster coming in and out of the rocks. So what we're going to build here is we're just going to build a building. To be honest, it's not going to have anything in it. It's just going to have a little bit of a building to power sort of the water wheel next to it and link to that quite nicely. We're going to put some water effects in as well, and this will be sort of a welcoming. So the bit you see, the small piece you see between the two tracks there, will be the small entrance to the fairy tale land from the western land before heading through the castle and walking through. We are then going to build a shop to the right of this. So again, the entrance area will sort of be between these two ones, and we will have the shops and everything in the building there. As you can see, we're not going to take too many shortcuts here. We are going to add quite a lot of small detail, quite a lot of planks in there as well. We're even going to move them around, make sure that the right height or different heights, depending on how we want it. We want to make it look fairly realistic, this building. You know, really old sort of town, really old sort of fairy tale look. And yeah, I think it's going to look amazing. I actually quite excited for this area, on how this area is going to turn out, because I feel that we can really achieve with the fairy tale. I think the fairy tale theme in the game is actually one of the strongest in terms of what you have to play with. And then with the old kind of wooden fascias which we're doing here and beams, you can really put an old building in and say, yeah, this is fairy tale. This is all about the fairy tale village, which is what we're going to finish off here. As I said, the small little ride we'll put in, I think we might just opt for a carousel. Quite honestly, I think we might just opt for a carousel to go in there, and we'll try and fit that in over by the entrance area of the castle. But yeah, building looking quite good. We've got to attach the wheel on the side and then build some shops as well. Now, from my point of view, I think it's probably fair to say that in the smaller areas, I am better in doing the theming. I'm still not amazing at theming. You know, I've seen some incredible themings online from what, you know, people literally must have nothing to do with their life other than play Planet Coaster. And I'd love to be in that position, I really would. You know, I'm trying my hardest to make some of the best theming I can possibly make and make it look really realistic. And in these smaller areas, you know, the devastation area we've got with the inverted coaster, and indeed this area as well, I really feel like I make more progress on the actual kind of detail and the theme. Whereas when you open a big area like even the tomb area, although it's quite, you know, at the front, the Ghostbusters ride required so much theming on the inside, it just feels like I themed a massive space. And then when you bring the western area in as well, and the massive ride we've just built, you know, these are big spaces to theme. So I think perhaps in the next part, but we will take some ideas for the next part, but perhaps for the next part we do maybe sort of like a Chessington style sort of 8 themed area with 2 or 3 rides in each area, and keep it really compact like we have done with this one, particularly this fairy tale area, which I think is, you know, working really well. It's come together really nicely. You know, the coaster's quite well hidden away. It'll have a nice entrance to it. I think ultimately whilst it's nice to do like an underground sort of entrance theme area to it, I think it would be nice ultimately to not have that bit themed as we go down. Now we are going to pick some brickwork for the shop, so I'm going to go through some colours. We don't want it too neutral, but at the same time we do want it to kind of mix in, and this will be where we have a couple of food stalls. Nothing too major, we don't want anything too big in this area, you know, just enough for people to come around and you know, enjoy themselves and hang around and enjoy the rides that are here. So we're going to top the roof off here before putting some more chimneys and things on top. And then the entrance area, which you see on the left here, the little archway, that will be where people come into the park. Now then, obviously these bits, we could terrain around these, but we're actually going to manually rock around these. These are the bits that the trains come in and out of. These are the bits that people will see, as particularly here, as they're walking in and out of the area. It's quite a tight space coming in and out, but I just think it works. I really, really think the area works. Added with the family attraction and the place to sort of sit and chill out, I just think it's going to come together really, really nicely and actually look quite a nice area. And it's going to feel really, really tucked away because you're not going to be able to see this from the entrance. None of this you'll be able to see from the entrance at all. It'll definitely be overscaled by buildings or other roller coasters or terrain. So this will be a nice surprise when people walk in. This will be the area which they don't have access to from walking in the centre of the park. This will be one they come across and they'll see, you know, some big rides and some family attractions on there too. So we are going to build around the water wheel here. We're going to make that look a bit more like it's an actual wheel rather than just sort of random. I don't really know how you're supposed to add the water to this, to be honest. I guess it would have to be right inside the water, but we're going to add some posts and we're going to add some rock around here to kind of build it in and blend it in with the massive building we've got next to it. So yeah, this has come across really, really nicely. It's worked really, really well. We're going to copy that to the other side because we want to make sure that we've you know, themed both sides, although we did miss some of the bits. Get some windows down either end. We need to fill in the gaps as well, and this will be the bit that you see when you walk into the area. So yeah, we're a bit tight on space here. We are a little bit tight on space just in front of the castle where we want to actually put something else. So let's just finish off the rock work here and then we'll have a look at a small ride. This is why I thought a carousel would probably fit perfectly in this area because it's not a massive footprint, and it is. There we go. So the carousel goes in, it's not offensive in any way. We'll have the queue going around the back, and we are going to, you know, really, you know, this is a wonderful family area in which they come in. So we want some plants, we want some shrubbery, and you know, we want the detailed scenery in there too. So we're going to have that on there. We're going to put some hanging baskets in, and then we're going to have a big wishing tree, the actual wishing tree, come through there. So this is going to be the struggle now, getting the path through here. We can get the path, right, we've got the path through, brilliant, we've got the path through there. We need to go back around the side as well, past the shops, and then we will have the queue line around the back. And again, you know, rather than leaving the path open, we are going to enclose this properly with some of the actual fences from the game. Again, so when you walk in, this is where you feel you're in the fairy tale adventure. So we got a bit of cosmetics to do around here. We need to attach the queue to the carousel before we head on back over and look at the other coaster. As you can see, we've added a lot of detail in there, including some fountains as well. The fountains, we linked up to the ride so that when you go around, the fountains will go off. Now we are linking the two now. This is going to be the entrance area to the fairy tale from the devastation area. So we've got a little bit of sculpting to do here. We want to put a little entrance in here as well, so really split the areas up, with the fairy tale being the focus of the entrance. The reason for this being is that obviously there is a big entrance to the kind of devastation area from the entrance, the main entrance of the park, whereas the fairy tale is kind of secluded away. So this will be the fairy tale entrance as we come through with a nice hanging sign and a few trees around as well. And we'll get that put in, and you can never select the sign when you do it that way. There we go, we selected the sign. So Enchanted Forest is what people will be going into when they enter this area, and again we'll put some kind of neutral trees around here, not ones just for the fairy, but ones that kind of work as well in regards with the area that's already there. Now the castle area here, as you can see, we have themed massively in the actual village, but we do have the back end of the castle to work out as well. That includes going down into the pit where the actual coaster starts. That also includes this turnaround point for the coaster here, in which we do want to have, you know, we kind of want it enclosed and we want it a bit more secluded with maybe a little bit of theming along the way. So we're going to do the terrain first, because the terrain is quite easy to do and have the track hugging the terrain on the right hand side. We're then going to add the rock working around here like we have in the village part. Make sure there is plenty of clearance space for it to go through. There we go, and again around the top entrance, so this is where it blasts out from the village into the final section. And here as well is where we've got a block break, so we've got a couple of block breaks underneath, and then it shoots out before going around the village to hit this block break. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to put a little dragon in here. We're going to hide him in the woods, just a little fire-breathing dragon, which we will have, and he will surprise guests on the turnaround once they've gone through the block break. We'll have to breathe a little bit of fire as well. We'll put a little bit of theming down here. Again, nothing serious, you know, this is all pre-built items here. You've got the little shed which it will go through, which again we will you know, theme up really nicely to look through. And then of course we're going to add some big trees around the back to cover the ride, add some big trees in the middle before putting a little bit of, you know, smaller shrubbery around. So the dragon will be hidden away. Arguably the rest of the track will be hidden away as well. The idea is, you know, when you enter, you won't be able to see any of this coaster. It feels like a proper ground hugging coaster below tree height. You know, but one or two areas it just won't be seen, which is going to be great news. You know, this is the kind of coasters I actually prefer building, these kind of coasters, than the really big ones. I always find when I build hyper coasters or something like that, that they're just so difficult to theme and scenery, they just look out of place. You know, with coasters like this, even if you're just using basic trees and bushes and things like that, you can really make a difference on it, and you can really kind of hide it away whilst making it look, you know, really good, to be honest, make it look really good. We're going to continue that across there as well, because, you know, all the areas are secluded, and then we need to start on this station area. So again, coming out of the underground, we're going to have a little bit of rock. We don't really want to put too much here. I don't want this bit underground. I don't want this bit undercover so much. You know, the idea is you enter this in the forest before heading on into the cave area and blasting off into the fairy tale land. Now we have got to have it come over, as we've said a couple of times before, when you build rides like this, you know, or any kind of coaster and things, it is so much faster having an on and off rather than getting on the same side. So have one side as one side of the other. It really does boost the throughput and really helps get people on and off the ride quicker. So, you know, we are in sandbox mode. Arguably it doesn't matter if people wait ages for the rides, but I don't really want them waiting for ages for the rides. You know, the idea is they come to the park, we want to get them on and off as quickly as possible. You know, you could argue the same with some of the parks in the UK. Once they've got your money, you know, it doesn't really matter whether or not they care if you have to wait or not. Well, some of them don't, arguably, and then some of them really put the effort in to get it, and we want to be the ones that put the effort in to do it. So we're going to put a few shops in there in a minute, but we're going to enclose this first, this wonderful little castle area. And you know, from the outside it's going to look spectacular, from the inside it's going to look a bit ropey. You know, if the building doesn't house anything that is ride based, then I don't really do an awful lot with it. That's the back end of it. So we're going to connect now the paths which will lead into the western area and that will lead into the back end of the fairy tale area. Wow, what an episode. What an episode this has been. We have built 2 huge coasters. We have nearly completely themed as well the fairy tale area, which you can see here, a really, really small area. We had to fit it in before we could sort out the western ones. Let us know what you think so far. We've got to continue with the western coaster next time. Get that up and running, get the theme going. Thanks for joining us. Leave your comments below. We'll see you next time.